What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video we have a lot to cover. We're going to replace a very old timing belt kit among other things such as repairs and a little bit of troubleshooting. In the last video I tackled a brake job from hell and did a complete brake overhaul as well as some other stuff. If you missed that one, make sure to check that episode out here on my channel. So let's get going right away. First things first, let's go ahead and remove the inner wheel arch to get better access to the lower parts of the timing belt. The inner wheel arch will also need to be removed in order to remove the rusty fender when that time comes. So let's hit two birds with one stone. And here we can see the reason why these Volvos have issues with rusted out fenders. First of all, a lot of mud, dirt and salt gets trapped in the lower corner of the wheel arch. Secondly, this foam insulation piece holds a lot of moisture and does not dry easily. However, the actual body and structure of the car is in good shape. Yes, the subframe and chassis components has a lot of rust, but it's a lot easier to replace parts that are bolted on rather than to repair structural body rust. Also, parts such as the subframe and control arms are made out of very thick and beefy material, so even if it looks really bad, it might not even be close to be rusted through. Before continuing further, I want to make sure that the Harmonic Balancer comes off, mainly the center nut, and after some WD-40 and a big impact, it came right off. Next up is to remove the auxiliary belt, and speaking of that, there is a receipt for it being replaced last year and it looks to be in really good condition, so I'm definitely going to reuse it. When dealing with a transverse mounted engine, you almost always need to remove the engine mount on the side that houses the timing components, and before you do that, you obviously need to support the engine. With that out of the way, we can now access the timing cover, which is held on by a 10mm stud and a couple of tabs. Before we go ahead and remove the timing components, we need to rotate the engine to top dead center. There are marks and indications for this. Sometimes they can be hard to identify. If that's the case, look it up in the manual or search online. And here it is, a timing belt with 160,000 kilometers on it. Volvo has really long intervals on their timing belt. This one had developed minor cracking on the rubber, so definitely worth replacing. Another alarming sight was that the tensioner and idler pulley had flinged out a lot of its grease. To get better access to the water pump, which I also highly recommend replacing at this point, we need to remove the engine to body mount, which seem to be in alright condition, no cracks and no leakage. The water pump wasn't leaking or anything, however the axle does have some play in it, so really glad we're replacing it. But in all fairness, I'm actually very impressed by the quality of the water pump since it's the original one that came from the factory. So it was really fiddly to get the water pump out. It barely got in between here after a lot of attempts, and obviously I need to get the new water pump in there without damaging the seal. And I also need to clean up the surface right there on the engine, making sure that it's completely squeaky clean so that the new gasket will seal properly. But this plastic shield, the backing plate or whatever you want to call it, for the timing belt is in the way. That is, I think if I remove that, I will have a ton of more room. But to remove it, you also need to remove the cam gear, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do right now. I've made a little mark here, so I will put it back at the same spot. So yeah, let's go ahead and remove some more stuff. A lot of caked on old grease from the leaking pulleys, so definitely worth to clean. I can't stress enough how important it is to thoroughly clean the sealing surface. Imagine doing all this work just to have a leaking water pump because you didn't take 5 minutes extra to properly clean things. Right here I'm just using some fine Scotch-Brite and some WD-40 to get rid of any old gasket material and dirt. And then I'm just rinsing that off with some brake cleaner. Huge thanks to oljemagasinet.se for sponsoring this video with this timing kit, complete with the water pump, gasket, idler pulley, tensioner and all new OEM hardware. To make life easier for me when installing the new water pump, I'm using some gasket maker on the water pump side to act as a glue when putting it on the engine, so that the paper gasket stays in place. Whenever installing something that needs to be sealing against a flat surface, make sure to tighten everything evenly in a crisscross pattern. At this point it just hit me. Let's go ahead and fill it up with coolant to inspect if there's a leak so we can catch it now at this stage instead of when everything is mounted back. No leaks whatsoever, so let's proceed. When all of the new parts are installed, it's important to spin the motor over by hand 2 full revolutions to check that everything feels alright and that the timing marks still align. After that, I can go ahead and test start the engine. Nothing strange there, so let's mount everything back and finish up the timing belt job. And that's the timing belt done. It feels really nice. I still have to bleed out the cooling system though, but I'll do that in the end when I go out for a test drive and get the engine to normal operating temperature and everything like that. So let's continue with the next thing on the to-do list. One of my dear viewers pointed out that my lid, this cover here, or yeah, this housing for the oil filter was faulty. It was broken inside. There should be, as we can see right here, I bought a new one from Volvo. There should be like this cylinder inside of it, which mine were missing. So yeah, I mean, it still works, but it just feels better knowing that everything is as it should. So let's go ahead and quickly replace that. I will reuse the oil filter in here because I haven't driven anything at all basically on it. I've just started it up, driving it in and out of the workshop, and that's it. So yeah, I'm gonna be really careful and I'm gonna be reusing that paper filter in there. So with that being taken care of, let's move on to the next thing. And as we can see right here, the car warns for a low battery voltage, even though the battery is fully charged and in good condition. The previous owners actually told me that they replaced the battery not too long ago, and what can happen if you don't reset the BMS module is that you can get a warning message like this because the car still thinks that it's an old worn out battery in the car. So let's go ahead and try try to reset it, register the newish battery to the car and see what happens. So now I've reset the battery information right here in this service function, and the instruction told me to shut off the car and put it into sleeping mode, all of the modules into sleep mode for at least 4 hours, meaning remove the key, turn off the ignition, close all of the doors, lock the car, and then just leave it. So I will do that, and I will come back tomorrow morning and see if the warning's still there. Sure enough, no more warning message. Feels really nice, as it was a simple free fix. As I said briefly in the first episode of this Volvo, I noticed a loose connector right here, and it actually goes to a preheating valve for the crankcase ventilation system, or the PCV system. So what I suspect happened, I actually have no idea, but maybe this heating element got shorted out and someone just disconnected it to get rid of the problem, basically. So let's reconnect this, see what happens. There's actually a 5 amp fuse in here that is for the PCV heating. So I will pop off this cover and try to activate this heater and see if the fuse pops, and see if I can figure out what the issue might be. Or maybe someone just forgot to plug this up. So let's see. So I just turned on the ignition, and as we can see, the heater is definitely working. So I'm just gonna leave it plugged in, the fuse hasn't popped or anything, and see if I experience any issues with it. I mean, there might be a parasitic draw or something like that when I actually turn off the ignition. We'll see about that, but if everything checks out good, then, you know, I won't have to replace it, and I'll save some money there. So let's move on to the next issue, and that is the AC system. It was actually working intermittently when I got the car, so let's see what the problem might be there. A common issue with an intermittently working AC is a bad AC relay or a bad AC clutch. Both were working flawlessly, however the testing conditions were far from ideal when troubleshooting the AC, as it was really cold and dry, which doesn't put much strain on the AC system. So I decided to not investigate further. We'll see if I still own the car when warmer weather comes. If that's the case, I'll pick up the fault finding once again. But for now, let's leave it and continue with the next problem. And that is this leaky axle seal, as we can see right here. The axle needs to come out, so let's soak all fasteners that need to be removed with some WD-40. I remember the ball joint being extremely difficult on the other side, so I disconnect the control arm from the subframe instead. Before removing the seal, it's important to clean the old seal and the perimeter around it, so that dirt doesn't get introduced into the sensitive parts inside. Here's the new seal from Volvo, which comes pre-greased. To install a seal like this dry is a sure way of having leaks down the road. Here you can see me use the old seal as a guide to drive the new one in. And then it's just a matter of reassembling everything in reverse order, check for leaks, and call this job done. After putting the car in drive and running through the gears, it definitely was a relief to see that there were no more leaks. And there we go, that's pretty much it as far as the mechanical stuff goes on this car, so that feels really nice to finally be done with that. Also took it out for a little test drive, actually the first test drive after all of the work that I've done recently. Everything felt really good, the brakes felt good, the engine ran absolutely smoothly with the new timing belt and all of that, so super happy about that. And the reason why I pulled it out of the garage is because I'm gonna do 1 or 2 videos with some other cars. I've bought a new project car actually that I will show on the channel here very shortly, so that's why I pulled it out. And as some of you might see, I didn't put on the inner wheel arches and the under tray of the car, and the reason for that is well, I'm gonna do the full detail on this car in the next episode, the next time this car will star on the channel. And I will also go ahead and take care of these rusty arches while I do that. So it's completely unnecessary if I just put them on and then put them back off immediately afterwards. So that will make things a little bit easier. So stay tuned for the next episode on this channel. So yeah, with that being said, take really good care guys, and I will see you in the next one.